Imagine how the Great War would change had Germany allied to Russia instead of Austria-Hungary, which was a real possibility. The sides would be drastically changed, as I see Italy going for the Central Powers, for example. So, would Germany come out on top of the Great War had they allied with Russia? This was actually possible, because right after Germany was formed in 1871, Otto von Bismarck said, "Guys, listen, we just united Germany, and all of the Europeans Armada does. If we find ourselves in a two-front war, we are guaranteed to lose." Thus, Germany sought to ally two of the three major powers that it borders, which were France, Austria-Hungary and Russia. Of course, the Germans and the French in that period were like politicians and honesty, like introverts and parties, like pineapple and pizza, which is to say that they don't work together very well. So, Germany allied Austria-Hungary and Russia, forming the League of the Three Emperors, but it collapsed two separate times. Once in 1878 and another time in 1887. After that, Germany chose to remain allied with Austria-Hungary rather than with Russia. But what if that changed? For this to happen, we need to change a few key details on how the League of the Three Emperors collapsed, so Germany would side with Russia rather than with the Habsburgs. In 1873, the alliance went like this. Hey guys, do you remember the Holy League? It was very cool. So, let us bring it back. Brilliant.
A few moments later.
Hello my dear allies, we shall quickly invade the Ottomans and liberate Bulgaria, right? But the Balkans are in my sphere of influence. Okay, we'll give you Bosnia for free if you stay neutral. We really want Bosnia, and I'm sure that nothing bad would happen to our Archduke in 1914 there, right? Surely. So, Russia went with their plans and invaded the Ottomans and were victorious. In the Peace Treaty of San Stefano, Romania, Serbia and Montenegro were to become independent states, while Bulgaria would get liberated. All of these were reasonable requests, but then Russia went full rewriting history mode and made a gigantic Bulgaria, which would be led by the Tsar's nephew, basically becoming a Russian puppet state. Guys, this is total bullshit. The Russians shouldn't get access to the Mediterranean Sea. We must cut Bulgaria down in size. Who's with me? Yeah, this seems reasonable. Can we get more great powers to agree? After that, the biggest betrayal happened and Austria-Hungary sided against their ally of Russia. The Russians did promise Bosnia and Herzegovina to the Habsburgs, right? Well, they decided to alter these plans and instead of granting them the whole region, they proposed a smaller chunk. Britain took advantage of this and promised all of Bosnia and Herzegovina to Austria-Hungary if they support for the creation of a smaller Bulgaria, which eventually happened. Germany stepped up in the picture and mediated the conflict, with the Treaty of Berlin of 1878 being signed, reducing the size of Bulgaria. This made Russia feel betrayed both by Austria-Hungary and Germany, so the League of the Three Emperors collapsed for the first time right after that. But what if all of that changed and Germany supported Russia's plans for Bulgaria? Austria-Hungary would be very furious and would most likely leave the alliance, which would change German and Russian foreign policy quite a lot. For this to happen, all of the great powers need to meet in Berlin to discuss the fate of the Balkans. Just like the Munich Conference of 1938, Bulgaria would not be invited, but their territories would be discussed there. The classic great powers bullying. Anyways, I can see Germany to stand up for Russia, with France and Britain not wanting to risk a total war with these countries, so they would strike for a compromise. Just remember that the year is 1878, so France was just defeated by Germany in 1871, so 7 years prior to that. The French would be wary of starting another war against an even stronger Germany. As such, I can see Bulgaria to get stripped of their Mediterranean holdings, but get to keep most of their territory, with Austria-Hungary getting all of Bosnia and Herzegovina, despite the discontent of the Russians. Right after this incident, the Habsburgs are more than guaranteed to side with France and Britain, so they would join the Entente instead of Russia. This is perhaps the better option for Germany, as if they would have to choose between allying with Russia or Austria-Hungary, allying the strongest country with less of a minorities problem would be the best choice for the German Empire. Thus, the Austrian identity would be reinforced, and the foreign policy of the country would be one of re-establishing control over the German states, which were historically under Austrian dominance for centuries, as the Austrians were the leaders of the Holy Roman Empire. Austria-Hungary would feel betrayed by Germany, and right after this incident, an alliance between the two countries would become impossible, so Germany must ally with Russia if they want to have any allies at all. Thus, the Berlin-St. Petersburg alliance would officially form, in the place of the dual alliance. This would be almost ideal for Germany and Russia, as if they find themselves at war against Austria-Hungary, there is plenty for them to gain. First up, Germany is likely to directly annex all of the majority German-speaking regions in Austria-Hungary, with the Germans perhaps getting Bohemia and Moravia as a protectorate. Russia would aim to help the Slavs of Austria-Hungary rebel, so Russia could aid Serbia and Montenegro in their quest to unite all of the South Slavs of the empire, or at least to liberate them. Additionally, Russia would be promised control over Galicia. In this possible partition of the Habsburg Empire, only Hungary would remain, so the Austrian portion of the empire would cease to exist, with Hungary losing minor lands, but they would get to keep all of Slovakia and Transylvania. Russia wouldn't want a stronger Romania, so they wouldn't allow the Romanians to get Transylvania. This is because a strong Romania could rival Russia and try to take Bessarabia from them, or Dobruja from Russia's puppet state of Bulgaria. These are the plans that Germany and Russia would agree in case of a war with the Habsburgs. As I said earlier, Austria-Hungary is unlikely to sit idle and would quickly approach France to formally join the Entente. The goal of France and Austria-Hungary would be in a case of a victory against Germany to completely partition the country, with France retaking Alsace-Lorraine and the Saarland, while Austria-Hungary may directly take Bavaria and Silesia. So these are the sides of Europe in this alternate universe, but there are more great powers to mention. The first of which is Italy, which had lost Nice and Savoy to France in exchange for the French helping Sardinia-Piedmont unite all of Italy, which did happen. These lands would be still claimed by Italian nationalists, but also Tunisia from France. But this is not all. Italy also claims lands from Austria-Hungary, which are South Tyrol, Istria and Dalmatia. Considering that both France and Austria-Hungary were rivals to Germany, it only makes sense that Italy joins the German faction, together with Russia. Serbia and Montenegro are likely to get close to the Russian sphere. I don't see them caving to the Austrians, who hold all of Serbian majority territories. In addition, for Serbia, they would border Bulgaria, which is a Russian vassal, so the Russians would have a lot of influence in Serbia, promoting the idea of pan-Slavism. Basically, Serbia would have to choose to either ally with Russia and get all of the Austrian lands, or to ally with the Austrians and get the Ottoman and Bulgarian lands. I think that Serbia would prefer the first option. Regarding the Ottoman Empire, they are a tough one, as frankly, everybody hates them. Russia and Austria-Hungary are both rivals to the Ottoman Empire, and want their way in the Balkans. So even if the Ottomans joined one of these sides, they would not be awarded anything in Europe. Russia would promise the Ottomans control over British possessions in the Middle East up to the Suez Canal, which would become an international zone, while France would promise to the Ottomans all of the Caucasus from Russia. What the Ottomans end up choosing, I shall reveal later. The last major power to consider is Britain, which would side with France and Austria-Hungary. The first reason is because Germany and Britain would most likely still engage in a naval arms race, but also because Germany is allied with Russia, a long-standing rival of Britain. Don't expect Britain to join the Entente right away, but they would be closer politically and economically to France and Austria-Hungary. So these are all of the sides, with the Ottoman Empire still being undecided. With that, I have shown you how an alliance between Germany and Russia is possible, but also how they would partition Austria-Hungary in case of a victory, and how the Entente would partition Germany in case of a victory, but also the sides of this alternate Great War. I don't think that the Great War would start in the same way, as prior to its start, there were two Balkan Wars and most notably, the Italo-Turkish War of 1911 to 1912. These conflicts cannot be ignored, and most likely the Italo-Turkish War would spark up the Great War. This would make the Ottoman Empire want to join the Entente, but them joining the German faction is also possible, so I shall give you two endings to this scenario, according to which side they end up joining. Of course, this is not too realistic, as with Germany allying with Russia in 1878 and abandoning Austria-Hungary, a lot would change in the whole 33 years leading up to the Italo-Turkish War. So this is not realistic at all, we just can't know what would happen in the space of these 33 years. As for the Austro-Hungarian ally of France, I think that they would be enthusiastic to go to war. The main reason for that is because Russia is starting to industrialize and to get stronger. So this may be the last chance for the Entente to achieve their goals in Central Europe, so it would be now or never. Funnily enough, historically, the Germans wanted to initiate a global war for the same reason, as they feared Russian industrialization and wanted to kill Russia before they get it together and pose a greater threat to all of Europe. So in this alternate scenario, the Italians would invade the Ottoman Empire, which would request France and Austria-Hungary to join this war, and this would happen right away, leading to the German faction to also support their ally of Italy. This results in the Great War to start 3 years earlier, which would have massive implications. Still, looking at the borders on the map, Austria-Hungary may be screwed, as they would be fighting on almost all fronts. This is how the Austro-Hungarian officers would react to this. Gentlemen, listen. We are already fighting on many fronts, and we cannot allow Romania to join the opposite side, so we must promise them Russian Bessarabia and Bulgarian Dobruja, if not even more. But how do we get in contact with the Romanians? Just send them a telegram, it should be fine.
A few moments later.
Hey Hans, did you intercept the Austro-Hungarian communications? Yeah, but nothing is happening. Wait, they sent a telegram to Romania, proposing that they join their side in exchange for land. These bastards. We need Romania on our side. Let's make a counter-offer. The lack of privacy on the side of Austria-Hungary could cost them the war, as Romania would be promised all of Transylvania in that case, as to get them on the German side, which would most likely succeed. Thus, Romania, a country which wanted to initially remain neutral, would find itself in a war against Austria-Hungary, but also be promised to nearly double their territory. The key lesson of this is that privacy is very important, and NordVPN can help you with that, as they not only protect your digital privacy by preventing Bulgarians and Romanians to steal your data, but it also has threat protection. This is a feature that I'm absolutely in love with, as it automatically checks for malware in any file you will download. Additionally, it blocks websites that are fake, malicious, used for phishing, fraud or scams. So it greatly improves your online security, not just your privacy. What makes this feature even better is that it automatically closes all of these annoying pop-up ads, so you can have a smoother browser experience. The best thing is that you don't need to have a connected VPN to use this feature, so it's worth to get it even if you have another VPN running. With the use of Dark Web Monitor, NordVPN will check the dark web for you and see if your personal data is being sold without your knowledge. I actually used NordVPN before I got this sponsorship, as I was in Italy and me and my girlfriend wanted to watch a Bulgarian TV show, but it was blocked in Italy, so we pulled out NordVPN and could watch it without a problem. To enjoy all of these benefits, get 4 months extra on a 2-year plan using the link nordvpn.com/rewritinghistory, or check the pinned comment and the video description. It's risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. I suggest you at least give it a try. Now, back to the video. So, where was I? Yes, Romania would end up siding with the German faction over fear of being crushed by the Bulgarians and Russians if they do join the Entente. This results in Austria-Hungary to practically fight a war on all fronts, against all of their neighboring countries. At least Switzerland is chill. Considering how incompetent Austria-Hungary was in the Great War, and with this war starting 3 years earlier, I'm sure that the Habsburgs would perform even worse. This is not to say that Russia would be performing too well, but historically they managed to invade Galicia and Ottoman Armenia, while also fighting the Germans. This time they are allied to Germany, so their Galician and Armenian advances may be an even bigger success. The Brusilov offensive may actually achieve its goal and capture Budapest, making Hungary rebel and putting an end to Austria-Hungary. You may wonder if Germany would initiate the Schlieffen Plan, and I don't think that this would happen. Going to our own timeline, the Schlieffen Plan was initiated as a quick way to knock France out of the war, then Germany would focus on Russia. This time, France wouldn't be a threat, so Germany can simply hold the front lines against France and focus on capitulating Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire first, and then wait for France to surrender. This makes it very unnecessarily for Germany to strike a neutral country and bring the United Kingdom into the war. Still, I expect the British to join the war regardless if Belgium's neutrality is violated or not. This is because Britain wouldn't accept Russian control over Constantinople, so they would have to fight if they want to stand a chance in the post-war period. This means that in this alternate timeline, France could be the one to initiate the Schlieffen Plan. This is really interesting to consider, but I think it's really possible. The reason for this is because Austria-Hungary, just like Russia in our timeline, would request for France to assault the German positions as to alleviate pressure from the Austrian front lines. This has the other benefit of France having a chance to capture the Rhineland, which holds a major part of the German industry, resources and population. If the French do capture the Rhineland, their odds of victory would improve drastically. In that case, Britain would support France, as winning the war for the British is more important than Belgian neutrality. This would make the Central Powers the good guys in this war, as they didn't violate another nation's sovereignty. Still, the Germans are likely to save most or at least a little of Belgium, so I don't think that France could make its way to the Rhineland, making this operation a failure, just like how you are to your father. Anyways, sorry for being passive-aggressive, so I would zoom out to show you the entire European continent, so you can realize the situation. The German faction is likely to make solid gains in Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, but most importantly, the connection between the two would be cut out. So the Habsburg monarchy is not only having to fight a war on all sides, but they are also encircled and cannot get help from their allies in any way. This would encourage the Greeks to join the German faction, where they would be promised parts of the Balkans, but most notably Cyprus and parts of Western Anatolia. On the other hand, the Entente doesn't have a counter-offer, so I can see Greece to join the German side, especially with their impressive gains, so they look like they're the clear winner. Japan may feel intimidated to join the Entente, as they would need to fight Russia in the Far East, so they cannot just take some German islands and call it a day like they did historically. Either way, if they join or not, I don't think that this will change the outcome of the war nor the peace treaty. As for the United States of America, they would be even more split on which side to join, or whether they should join at all. The war started 3 years earlier, so Woodrow Wilson isn't even president yet. I also don't think that the Zimmermann telegram would be initiated, but also I don't see Germany to do unrestricted submarine warfare. This is because Germany can trade with their allies of Russia, so a British blockade would be less effective than it was in our own timeline. The odds are that the United States of America would stay out of this conflict. Going back to Europe, I think that it's only a matter of time before Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire completely crumble and surrender. Which one falls first, I cannot say, but I think it's more likely going to be Austria-Hungary, considering their minorities problem, the fact that they're fighting on all fronts and that they're encircled. I would actually be very surprised if under these conditions they managed to survive for more than a year. Not so long after that, the Ottoman Empire would also follow suit, despite the help of the British and the French, as they would reinforce the front lines in the region. France and Britain may turn against the Ottoman Empire and support the local Arabs in the hopes of establishing an Arab state that the Entente could influence and take their resources after the war. After that, it would be just France and Britain practically fighting against the entire world. Seeing an easy victory, I can say the Spanish to join the war on the German side. Of course, Spain was in a massive decline politically, economically and militarily, so their entry wouldn't be of much use, at least militarily speaking. They would pose as a nice distraction to France, and with France having to fight on 3 fronts, they may just surrender before Paris is inevitably captured. This would put an end to the Great War. In the peace treaty, I would have Spain to get Gibraltar, which they would most likely occupy during the war, but also French Morocco, linking up Spanish Morocco to Spanish Western Sahara. As for the rest of Africa, I think that Germany would establish Middle Africa, but since Belgium was on their side, Belgian Congo may remain intact. But the entirety of Belgium would become a protectorate of Germany. Italy would also get Libya and Tunisia, over which the war started. As for the Ottoman Empire, they are likely to get totally dismantled, as both the Entente and the German faction would want to partition their lands, so the Ottomans would be thrown under the bus by their former allies. The Entente and the German faction would split the Ottoman Empire into spheres of interest, as the Entente would get Arabia and do with them what they desire, while the rest goes to Germany and Russia. As for the Arabs, they would most likely get a big and united state, with the help of France and Britain, but with the catch that this state needs to give resource rights to France and Britain. The Germans wouldn't really accept this, but it's not worth it for them to conquer Paris and land in Britain just to prevent the Entente from getting a bunch of deserts with oil. As for the rest of the Ottoman Empire, they are likely to lose Ottoman Armenia and Laziland to Russia, with Greece gaining the Anatolian coastline that they desire, but also expanding into the Balkans and Cyprus. Bulgaria is likely to take Thessaloniki due to it being a Russian vassal state, but also parts of Eastern Thrace. At that point, the Russians can take Constantinople directly if they desire. They already have Bulgaria, which has a better access to the Mediterranean Sea, so Constantinople wouldn't be really needed by the Russians anymore, but I see them taking it just to prevent somebody else from taking it instead. The rest of the Ottoman Empire in the Balkans would be partitioned between Serbia and Montenegro, with an Albanian state maybe being formed, and what remains in Anatolia would become known as the Turkish Sultanate, and it's likely to become a Russian protectorate, just like Bulgaria. As for Austria-Hungary, I previously discussed how Germany and Russia agreed to partition the country in advance. First up, Italy would take their claimed territories from Austria-Hungary, then Germany would directly annex the majority German speakers of the empire, while puppeting Bohemia and Moravia. Italy and Germany are likely to have disagreements over South Tyrol, so they would split it in half and Italy would be granted a bit more of Dalmatia. Russia would take the entirety of Galicia and appease the Polish people inside their own nation, maybe creating a Polish kingdom as to stabilize the Russian Empire. Romania will this time take all of Transylvania, with Serbia expanding into the Western Balkans, leaving us with these borders and the complete dissolution of the Habsburg Empire. Hungary would become a free state, most likely a kingdom. A king, however, has to be elected, and there would be Italian, German and Russian candidates to the Hungarian throne. So this pick may solidify the direction in which Hungary would be going. France is the final country in the Entente that would see its territory exchange in Europe, and they would get a considerably milder peace treaty. This is because France surrendered before the German might could break the lines and capture Paris, so the French still hold a lot of influence in the peace treaty. Germany would only directly take Nancy from France, while also annexing Luxembourg on the pretext of protecting the people from foreign invasions. Belgium would become a protectorate of Germany and would no longer be a neutral nation, so they would be granted Pas de Calais. Italy would also take Nice and Savoy, but perhaps not Corsica, as France can refuse and prolong the war, which is not really desired by any side. Finally, Italy can potentially directly take all of Malta. These would be the borders of this alternate world had Germany allied with Russia and Italy, with the events unfolding on just how I described them, which is not really possible to happen. After the war, this alliance is likely to fall out, as the Polish kingdom, being a Russian vassal, would start claiming German lands. Russia and Italy would also have some friction in the Balkans, so Germany and Italy may remain allied, with France and Russia together maybe with Britain forming an alliance and initiating a global war in the next 20 years. The key difference is that this war would perhaps end in 1913-1914, so tanks are most likely never used on the battlefield, so their real potential is still not discovered. I really want to spoil you with content, so I have another ending for this scenario, which is what if the Ottomans joined the German faction rather than the Entente. This is possible if the Italo-Turkish War of 1911-1912 doesn't escalate to include other countries and to start a world war, just like how it happened in the previous scenario. So after that, the Ottoman Empire would approach Germany for protection. This is of course less realistic to happen, as the Ottomans and Russians were rivals for centuries. But this is still really interesting to consider. In that case, the Great War can start in 1914, just like how it was historically, putting all of these countries at war right away. In the previous scenario, with the Ottoman Empire in the Entente, the Germans still managed to win the Great War. So without delaying it further, I think it's even more likely that the Germans would also win this time, but it would be even quicker. The key changes are that the Russians likely neglect Romania and don't promise them land, as Russia knows that this war would be easily won and that they don't have to share the spoils of war with Romania. The Entente would still promise Romania lands, but considering the sides, they are likely to remain neutral. Greece would also be approached by the Entente and be promised Ottoman and Bulgarian lands, making them want to join the Entente, but the Balkan frontline is very mountainous and would stalemate. This would result in an eventual victory for the German faction, so the key difference is that the war started 3 years later, but it was shorter and more likely less deadly compared to the previous scenario. The Ottoman Empire would be granted Cyprus, but also of the British possessions in the Arabian Peninsula, which would satisfy the Ottomans a lot. The Ottoman Empire is likely to want to subjugate Greece, or at least break them into smaller states and influence them later. As for Hungary, since Romania never joined the war, the Hungarians would get to keep all of Transylvania, and either become a Russian or a German ally. The rest of the peace treaty I would say happens in exactly the same way. The alliance between Russia and Germany would still inevitably collapse, so an alternate Second World War in this universe would be very different, and for sure Germany would not be the one initiating it. In both scenarios, the Central Powers ended up being victorious, but this is because Russia helped out a lot in this war. Would Germany still win if Italy joined the Central Powers is another interesting question. So I will redirect you to this video where you can find the answer. Thank you for watching and I wish you the best day possible. Goodbye.